Businesses today need to think about compliance. We live in an ever more regulated world. The regulators are starting to focus now on medium-sized and even smaller-sized organisations. You know, a few years ago it would have been the big boys that they were focusing on. It's perfectly common these days for the auditors to be going in and looking at mid-sized organisations. Brand reputation is important as well. Customers need to feel that they're dealing with someone who's a safe pair of hands. So being compliant and being seen as being compliant can be a real market differentiator. And it can also protect your bottom line as well, because if you suffer a data loss, I mean, there have been a lot of fairly high profile news stories the last couple of years. You don't want to suffer one of those, because you lose that reputation, or that business reputation. And you can also actually incur fines as well. And of course, the UK's Information Commissioner has been granted new powers quite recently, which in theory could allow them to fine organisations up to £500,000 for data breaches. Ultimately, it's you, the customer, in particular the CEO, responsible for compliance within your organisation. But that doesn't mean that you can't share the load and that you can outsource some of the security compliance bits to a third party, for example. And we've found that customers that have engaged us to take them through their compliance programs have actually benefited from being able to achieve compliance in a more pragmatic, in a more cost-effective manner. And of course, for that CEO responsible for compliance within that organisation, that gives him the assurance that the people within his organisation are doing what they need to be doing, and yet he's achieved it in a quicker and more cost-effective way. To me, an effective compliance programme should do more than just ticking a compliance box and giving you a certificate on the wall. Sure, that's important, but it should also reduce risk, improve the culture, improve education, give you a useful barometer, if you like, that you and your staff are doing the right thing within your organisation. So it should do more than just satisfy the auditors. Challenges organisations face these days with compliance generally is not just achieving it, which in itself is a challenge, but also maintaining it. A lot of organisations may be under the misconception that it's a tick the box and walk away and get on and do the next thing, and it's not. You really need to keep on top of these things. Being compliant today may not necessarily mean you're compliant tomorrow, and of course we need to consider risk in this. The whole point of doing this compliance work is to address information security risks, which do change on a daily basis. One of the things that we do is we kind of act in that middle ground between the customer and the regulator. So not only are we looking for changes within the regulatory landscape and advising the customer, but we're keeping a watchful eye on new threats that may be out there, cyber threats and so on and so forth. And by monitoring the IT, we're able to determine where that customer may be at risk, as well as, of course, of, where things may need to happen from a compliance point of view. Well, while large organisations are likely to have the resources at their disposal to run and maintain an effective compliance programme, small organisations probably don't. And what can usually happen is an IT department may be tasked with running the compliance programme, and what happens is they bite off more than they can chew. When the auditors come in, they may find that they've misconstrued one of the requirements or missed one out altogether, and then obviously be marked down. That's going to be wasted money. You've spent money on a compliance programme that hasn't really delivered to that point. The other thing that I see is customers being dragged in, if you like, by vendor claims, claiming that this nice silver box will make you compliant with PCI, for example. And whilst that technology is a required component of that compliance framework, it's just one piece in an overall puzzle. And the regulators are going to be looking for how that technology is deployed and operated, not just that you've got it there in the first place. When starting any compliance programme, the first thing you should consider is, well, which bit of my business needs to comply? If PCI is the thing that you're interested in, then that only governs the parts of your business that are involved in credit card processing. So what we do is we'll work with an organisation to identify where that credit card information is, and then design an appropriate environment where we can focus all those compliance requirements in one place, thus saving money, spreading it out across the business unnecessarily. The other thing you'd need to do, obviously, is to carry out some kind of gap analysis. So to understand what gaps you've got against that regulatory framework, whether it's PCI, Sarbanes-Oxley, or any of the others for that matter. And that way you can start to put together a programme of activities and an action plan. At New Solutions, we've taken a conscious decision to build a framework of compliance and security services that we can bolt into any organisation, almost regardless of any regulatory framework that they need to comply with. From the professional and advisory services part of the business, which is really aimed at delivering consultancy services to business, so help them through gap analysis, understanding what their regulatory requirements may be, and training and education. And on the other side, we have the managed IT security services, which are all those technologies that you need to meet these compliance frameworks, pre-packaged and ready to drop into a customer, so that they get the benefit of having that technology on board without the pain of understanding how to operate that technology, having the resources to run it and maintain it.